We're heading into week 10 of the fantasy football season, and Joe and I are here to give you 4 trade targets to help your teams make the playoffs.
Hike!
Yeah, it's crazy, Steve. I can't believe we're already at week 10 of the NFL season, but nevertheless, here we are. My first trade for target is going to be wide receiver Devonta Smith. You saw Dallas Goedert get hurt in last game. Talking about missing 4 weeks, it potentially could be longer. I mean, he did have, fracture his forearm, so we'll see. But I think with Goddard out, clears the path for the number 2 option being Devonta Smith in his Eagles offense. We saw it last year when Goddard was out. Devonta just really picked up the slack and was a really good play for fantasy. And I think we could see that. And I think this could be the time to buy him because they're on bye week. If people are in some bye week trouble, sometimes you can acquire players at a good price when they're on bye. Kind of the forgotten piece, or teams are kind of trying to figure out how to get their lineups in with a guy on bye week. But some players I'd be willing to possibly trade away to get Devontae. I definitely guys like DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Brandon Ayuk, and maybe even somebody like Chris Olave. I think I like the quarterback situation better with the Eagles than the trying to rely on the rapport of Olave and Carr, which just haven't been there.
I love this choice by you. I didn't know who you were going to pick as your trade target, so we were talking about it. And when you told me about it, it just made too much sense. Devonta Smith has really underperformed this season. And if you are an owner of his, you're probably been like, what do I do with him? Right? Because he just hasn't performed. But you're absolutely right. Last year when Dallas Goedert was out, Devonta Smith really took off. I expect the same thing to happen. So he's a perfect trade target. He's in the bye week. People are, depending on if they have Devonta Smith, they're probably, depending on where they draft him, possibly in third or fourth round of their draft, they may not be doing so hot. So they may be needing a win. They might not be able to just let this week go by and possibly get an L. So they may be desperate enough to say, hey, I need to make a trade. So I really like this choice for you. I think it makes a ton of sense. And I'm with you. I trade all those guys. And I think that's pretty much about it. I was kind of thinking about Puka, honestly, only because of,
Yeah.
the Stafford question. We just don't know, when Stafford will be back, when that thumb will be right. Brett ripping, he's not ripping it.
No.
So, but I really like this pick by you. This is getting ahead of the curve. We've talked about this before, trying to get ahead of it. Sometimes it's not bad to buy high after something has happened, but this would be getting ahead of the curve. I like it.
Yeah. Puka's interesting. I think Stafford's going to be back, so that would give me the only hesitation. But they're also on a bye this week, so kind of interesting because people might still be looking at Puka's value decently, and if they're positive that Stafford's coming back, you possibly could trade him.
All right, Joe. So my next trade target is going to be a guy you disagree with, and actually, you recently gave him to me, so thank you very much.
No, thank you.
But it would be wide receiver George Pickens. I did my homework, Joe, so I've got several reasons why I like Mr. Pickens.
All
Number
right.
one is I love his matchups down the stretch. He plays the Colts, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, and the Patriots. All of those are great, juicy matchups for George Pickens, number one. Number two, he's got some divisional opponents coming up. He's got Cincinnati twice and Cleveland, which you would say it's not the best matchup. But versus his own division, he's already accumulated 4 total touchdowns against his division rivals. So he tends to play pretty well when the lights are bright against his division. The next reason is recency bias for your Deontay Johnson. People are panicking after that most recent game because Deontay got a touchdown after all this time. He finally got one. And so now they're like, oh, now it's time for the Deontay show. I'm not buying it. I think it's too recent. George Pickens still is in the top 20 for routes run, total snaps, and total targets. And lastly, Joe, we know the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I will say that Pickens' wheel is squeaking. Tomlin knows how to handle difficult receivers in the past. He's had the legs of Antonio Brown, Santonio Holmes. He knows what to do. He's going to get Pickens the ball. So this is a great time to go ahead and get him.
Yeah, I was waiting for this compelling argument because, man, I cannot sell this guy fast enough. And I thank you for wanting him because I hated that guy being on my roster and even starting him, especially when he can't even get 2 feet down for a touchdown last week. But one of the main reasons I don't like him is the fact that he's got Kenny Pickett throwing him the ball. And
You're not wrong there.
Yeah, I don't trust him in the one, and he just has, I like Deontay Johnson better. And he just got more of the target share of that offense. And Pickens was great when Deontay Johnson was out, but now that Deontay Johnson's back, Pickens has just been not good for fantasy.
I'd rather have Pickens over Deontay. I'd be willing to trade away Drake London. I would be willing to trade Jacoby Myers, Jordan Addison, Garrett Wilson, Christian Watson, Zay Flowers, all of those guys I'm trading away to get George Pickens.
Man.
And I just gave you Jerry Jeudy, so I put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was easy for me just simply because of the quarterbacks. I have way more faith in Russ getting Jeudy the ball than I do getting Pickens the ball.
You're not wrong there. So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So who do you have as your other trade target?
Yeah, my other trade target. Now, this one's not so much getting ahead of the curve, but if you missed out on this guy in free agency, I think before he ends up, starting, he is going to start this week. Before he plays a game, go ahead and try to get Kyler Murray. If you're a Kirk Cousins owner or, there's been plenty of quarterbacks getting hurt, and we've had the quarterback scene lately, if it's not one of the top ones, has been pretty bleak out there. Daniel Jones has been hurt. We had Clayton Tune starting. We got Josh Dobbs in Minnesota. Just some of these names playing quarterbacks at this point is pretty ugly. So if you need a quarterback, I think, go ahead and target Kyler Murray. If you're a playoff team, looking to contend for a championship, the last 2 weeks of the season, he's got some really juicy matchups. So go ahead and trade for him and get this guy on your roster, and he could end up helping you win a championship.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this. Kyler Murray's playoff matchups are just absolutely phenomenal. You've got Chicago and Philadelphia. It can't get any better than that when it comes to Kyler Murray. And this coaching staff is going to want to see how good is Kyler Murray. Is he the guy for this franchise, or are they going to move off him after he got that huge contract? So I'm with you. I guess what players would you say you're willing to trade away in order to acquire Kyler Murray?
Yeah, I think if you got Deshaun Watson, he's been pretty disappointing. I'd be willing to trade him. Geno Smith, guys like Matthew Stafford. Thinking about it, I know he's been pretty good, but I think you could possibly, trading Goff might be an option. Despite him being good, just Kyler Murray with his running ability, he's got the higher ceiling, and I think that's a deal you could possibly, pull off to somebody.
What about your MVP, Brock Purdy?
Yeah, that's tough, but he hasn't. I don't know. There's been something going on there, but if Debo comes back after the bye, I think that's really the missing piece for that offense. But that could be interesting. I think I'd be willing to trade Purdy in that case to get Kyler. Just again, the rushing upside's there for that ceiling. Even though Purdy's almost a guarantee to get you 2 touchdowns a week, rushing ability is just kind of the cheat code for fantasy, and Kyler's got it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Honestly, all the above. I would trade all of them away in order to get Kyler. Like you said, in most fantasy football leagues, that rushing quarterback is a cheat code, and he has that dual threat ability. Kyler Murray does. So I think having him in the fold is going to be really helpful for your team, especially during that playoff stretch. depending on who you have. You can't get much better than that. So I really like Kyler Murray as an option. Again, I really like your choices this week. I think it's a great move to go ahead and I know you. I'm going to cut you a little slack. I know you said that you're not getting ahead of the curve, but not completely. But I think in some ways we still don't know. He could perform really badly. He could, tweak his knee or something. All of a sudden, Tune's back out there. You don't know.
Yeah,
So I
right.
mean, it is before the performance. Ideally, you would have liked to got him like during the stint where he was on IR, but we didn't really even know if he's going to play. Really, we don't. We thought that he could. There was rumblings that he was gonna. Now he's actually going to. So this is like I think the first time it's like the green light is there. He's definitely going to play.
Yeah, yeah, and we heard he's going to start, and right this week he's got the Falcons, and saw Joshua Dobbs have a decent game against them, and he didn't even know the players on the offense. So,
so my second trade target heading into Week 10 is running back Rhamondre Stevenson. Look, he had his best game all season. Last week he had 87 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, 6 targets, 4 catches, and 42 receiving yards. It's been a disappointing season for Rhamondre, but in general, he's pretty consistent for around 10 carries and around 5 targets a game. So he's getting around 15 touches, which isn't great, but honestly, the running back landscape is not very consistent altogether. But he has unreal matchups heading down the stretch here. He's got Indianapolis, he's got the Giants, he's got the Chargers, he's got the Steelers, he's got the Broncos, he's got the Bills. I don't really think there's another running back that's got a better matchup than this guy. And honestly, if Ezekiel Elliott's out there and you got a deep bench, maybe just stash him on your bench just in case Rhamondre gets injured, because whoever's in that backfield, they're just going to absolutely light it up. And Mac needs the relief. He can't just be thrown all around. He gets overwhelmed and it doesn't work out very well. So he needs that running game to help spell him in that offense. So I think Rhamondre is going to really kick in high gear. Unfortunately, he did what he did this past week against the Commanders. This would have been a guy that would have been nice. But this is the best he's done all year. He could be a sell high for people. He could be like, oh, finally, let me try to get as much as I can. So I do think you're still in that window of opportunity, but you better act fast.
Yeah, like you said, ideally, you would have acquired him a couple weeks ago when he still wasn't that great, but you saw the juicy matchups coming. But it was nice to see him actually have a nice breakout run for that big playability that, we've seen out of him, but haven't really seen thus far this year. So definitely, owners could not believe in this performance and, be looking to sell high. So it still could be an opportunity, even though you're going to have to buy a little higher than you could have got him a few weeks ago.
As far as players that I'd be willing to trade away to acquire him, I'd be willing to trade Dameon Pierce, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, Aaron Jones, Isaiah Pacheco, Breece Hall. I'd be willing to trade all of those guys to be able to acquire Rhamondre Stevenson.
Interesting. You're willing to trade the hot back of Jahmyr Gibbs, huh?
Well, because Dave Montgomery's coming back. We already heard that Dave Montgomery's going to be the hot hand. I just do not trust what's going on there. I do not. Same thing with the whole thing with Bijan and the Falcons. Don't even get me started. I can't trust.
I think Detroit's better. Dan Campbell, I have more belief that they'll end up figuring out ways to get Gibbs involved. Now that I think early on you heard them say he just wasn't reading the holes right, and that's why he wasn't getting a lot of action. But now that he's shown what he can, and I think, what he adds as a receiver, I think we still will. I know Montgomery will be the top guy. Campbell's already come out and said that, but I think they will find a way to work him more into the passing game.
But usually what Campbell says is usually pretty consistent. That's my concern. It's not like he says something. Some coaches, they say something and then they do the opposite. This is not Campbell. Campbell is just he's straight up with you. Whatever he says is actually what he means. When he talks about biting kneecaps, he means biting kneecaps off. He actually, he's not a politician. He's gonna just say what he wants to say.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong about that. You know, a lot of coaches will lie to you, but he definitely, he means what he says for sure.
So that's 4 trade targets for you to go and acquire heading into Week 10 to help you make the playoffs. We'll be back next week for Week 11 trade targets. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.